Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 845SUBIE podcast. We are a New York-based collective of Subaru enthusiasts, and this is a podcast that pretty much shows and showcases every member's cars, all of the members and the individuals that are a part of the group and collective. We will be looking to have special guests and such. Without further ado, let's get started on episode 2 of 845SUBIE's podcast. VB talk. Okay, so we got Tarik.
What's up, guys? 6-speed VB. Or actually, Joe, you want to get in?
Joe, you sit in the middle because I figure you'd hammer him with some questions too.
Okay, all right.
Twist your arm?
Yeah, that's okay. That works.
I'll be the camera guy.
Yeah. I'll do a couple, and then if you want to come in too. So
Sure.
All right, so we're going to segue into our next segment, which is we're going to talk VBs. So one of the people we have with us is a, surprise, VB owner, also former GD owner. This is Tarik.
Pleasure to meet you, everyone. A couple of things. You know, I just got into the VB gang last year. I'm coming from more of a European platform. I mean, I did, like he stated, I had a GD, and that was a fun 2 years. You know, getting down manual was my first manual. I consider Subarus to be generally very easy to learn if you don't know how to drive manual. Then I switched over to an automatic platform. I was in a BMW 328. I had a couple things done to it. Blow-off valve, turbo inlet, all aluminum turbo inlet at that. Intake, charge pipes, you know, the works. And it made a lot of cool turbo noises, but I was still lacking on the manual experience. And, you know, coming into the game, there's not that many offerings nowadays, you know. VB made sense. It's all-wheel drive. I live in New York. 6-speed manual. Makes tons of power, has good, you know...
very tunable.
Very tunable. You know, like we said, there's a lot of numbers being made with just an intake and a tune. So I'm glad to be a part of the platform.
So was your BMW, it wasn't all-wheel, it was rear?
No, it was all-wheel.
It was, okay.
It was.
But the all-wheel drive system, it's not the same.
It's not the
correct?
same as Subaru at all. Like, there's been some touchy moments, even with winter tires, where... inches away from a guardrail, caught it, thankfully. But
right, yeah, it's just, it seems strange. Like Audi, even Quattro.
Which was
great
like
all-wheel
synonymous
drive
with
system. The first WRC
EV.
drive system.
Yeah.
So, but there's something about it. I drove the Q7, and I took it off-road on purpose in the snow, set up all the modes. It just didn't perform.
It
couldn't perform.
I found it better driving my front-wheel drive GTI. I've owned two of them, Mark 5 and Mark 7, in the snow, and being able to control it and do whatever the hell I wanted with that car, versus a couple Audis I've driven that are all-wheel drive. Also, believe it or not, all-wheel drive Porsche SUV I've driven before when I worked at an independent and had to drive it home in a snowstorm. And actually, there was a time where I drove a rear-wheel drive, obviously it's rear-wheel, S2000 for a customer in the snow, and I actually felt safer in the S2000 in the snow with summer tires than I did in the all-wheel drive Porsche. What is that? The Cayenne?
Cayenne, yes, correct.
The bigger guy, not the Macoun or whatever.
And just to throw it back, I also did have an Audi A4 Quattro, and I spun out in the snow. Never once has that ever happened in all the Subarus that I've owned, and I'm on my 4th or 5th Subaru.
I'm on my 6th, and the sketchiest thing that ever happened was in my SVX. One of the rear right tire just went off the berm, just enough, and it went sideways. And I put a crazy correction on the car. It's fine. Perfectly tried. That's the only thing I've ever had happen that was sketchy at my Subaru. So yeah, 6 Subarus in, and that all-wheel drive system that they made, the symmetrical all-wheel drive, it's absolutely amazing if you haven't driven one.
And it's uniform. Like, I have a Forester as well, first-gen Forester.
Right.
And I took it out. And, you know, it feels exactly like my WRX, just doesn't have that extra room of power. But on the road, it's planted. You know, you can't beat the Subaru all-wheel drive system.
No.
You know?
Very rigid chassis to begin with, so, I mean, an upgraded sway bar from, like, you know, Whiteline or something, shout out Whiteline, minimal things like that will make it feel like it's driving on rails. Like, now, my WRX, I have full suspension done to. I have an 04 GD WRX Java Black Pearl. And that there, like, just the tuning that I did, I tuned it to drive on Lime Rock. I've taken it to Lime Rock 0 times. But the fact that I can go around, for those that live in the Hudson Valley area, anybody that's been on Taconic and they go around those S-turns down by Peekskill Hollow, that is a death trap. People start hugging the right lane because they want to be on the inside of the turn and stuff like that. I don't know how much I want to say this. I've taken that turn with minimal roll at like 85 miles an hour, no tire screech, no nothing, and just laughing at like, you know, other people that were arrogantly driving past me previously as I'm driving by them, being like kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jingle All the Way, where he's like, I'm having a great time because he can just run fast in the Subaru, you know what I mean? Anybody seen that classic movie? So literally, minimal mods on suspension, or even none. Maybe just drop it on some springs or something like that to bring the center of gravity down slightly. The suspension is there. They're tuned. They're tight. You know what I mean? They're pretty good for like Japanese cars in general.
Right.
People try to compare them to like say like Infiniti and stuff like that. I love Infiniti, huge fan, but very, very boaty around turns.
And I will say, and I had Bilstein suspension on my BMW, and crossing over into the VB, I feel like it hugs the road a lot better, and that's still with the stock suspension. So I was surprised when I went for my first test drive before I bought the car, coming from the BMW over to the WRX. I felt more like a race car.
Yeah, that's just amazing, right? Because, I mean, even BMW, it's not an M. It's still got that spirit. It's still a German-engineered sports car.
Well, even the non-M cars, they still have the M packages for it and stuff like that. So they're cool cars.
Right,
you know,
right.
Great.
I mean, not to give any down credit to BMW, they make phenomenal vehicles like the B58, B48,
E30.
Yeah,
I love the E30s. Any E30, even the 314s and stuff like that, like little tiny 4-cylinders.
Incredible vehicles. And right, those aren't sports cars, but how many of them have been turned into drift cars?
Drift cars, you got people to turn them into drag cars, stuff like that.
Old cars.
Track cars, yeah. So time attack. I've seen people time attack with them. One thing I actually thought was really, really cool, I saw at a time attack race once, was down in E-Town on the parking lot track that they have there, was somebody in an E39 just sending it. And they were staying pretty tracked. Now, those are rear-wheel drive 5 Series from the late 90s, early 2000s. Actually, my favorite generation of the 5 Series, like the M5 from that year. Phenomenal. Anyway, I remember seeing this one guy that was just like freaking sending it. And the only people that were getting better lap times, and I'm really not trying to plug the product here, but was Subaru. They were the only people that were holding their own better. And maybe there was like 1 or 2 Evos that were there and stuff like that. So Evos put down power. I mean, let's not discredit them.
Yeah, right.
For sure. So for VBs and modifications, so why did you choose what you chose for modifications?
Because I'm still early off in my mileage. I want to make sure that this engine is secure before I start throwing way more performance parts at it and then go for tuning. Granted, the VBs have been pretty reliable when it comes to the tuning and performance portion. What I have done so far is the X-Force intermediate pipe. I do have axle back from EOS, Extreme Online Systems. I believe that's their name. Don't quote me. I have a drop-in filter, charcoal delete, obviously because that's California emissions. We live in New York. It doesn't need to be in the car.
Right.
And what I noticed when I removed it, I did get an extra pound of boost. So there is a lot of restriction with that carbon filter.
That is awesome to know.
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you're looking for a little bit of power and you're a VB owner and you don't live in California, get rid of that carbon filter.
Or even if you do live in California.
Yeah. You learn something new every day. That is awesome. Great tip. My goodness.
But I do have big plans.
Yeah.
I recently got sponsored by MSD Performance, and they're new in the Subaru game. They mostly dealt with German cars. I mean, I had their intake on my BMW, sounded great. The turbo was fluttering. It was audible from really far away. You know, just to give credit to them, they are testing out more new parts. They're getting into the Subaru platform. I'll be testing out their intake. It's on the way. Hopefully, I should have a video out by the end of the week, but just a good shout out to them. Recent sponsorship.
Nice. Yes. So we're going to test the intake out, and we are going to do our best. We have some information on how to test these things. A lot of it is the actual bore, or the inside diameter of where the mass airflow sensor fits in.
Right.
That's a big deal. That's why Cobb SPT worked with the stock tune for the old GDs, but for the VBs, that's what we're going to see. So we're going to be testing it. So hopefully we're going to be able to give you some data logs.
Exactly.
We're gonna measure the intake. We're gonna see where the MAF sensor fits. So we are gonna definitely do its diligence to let everyone know
and test the product out. And they are claiming it is safe for stock tune. Granted, I'm still on the stock tune. It will not be for long. I know the FA24 is a little bit lenient on what you can throw at it before you have to throw a tune on.
Right.
But it's going to be short-lived. I want to make some power, you know.
Yeah, there we go.
Most people do say, like, intake, tune. But, you know, with a couple other companies that are, like, really tested in it, they have a lot of R&D and stuff like that, I do tend to be like, okay, well, like, this is reputable, blah, blah, blah. Like, most people that know, like, Eurocars, like, Volkswagen, stuff like that, if APR says it, it's, like, word of God type of thing.
Yep.
So, like, if people like Cobb and stuff like that have had their hands in it and been like, hey, you know, this is pretty good like this, I'd be okay to take their word for it, because I know I myself have always been, like, a skeptic of listening to the aftermarket and being like, I'll believe it when I see it, I'll believe it when I try it, until then I'm going to take all the necessary steps and this, that, and the other thing. But again, Cobb is definitely, they've been in it long enough. They've been through a lot of adversity to have to try to make their product fit certain standards and stuff like that. And they've been phenomenal ever since.
And it's not just Cobb either. Perrin has their own intake as well. They clean No Tune as well.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Perrin's been in the game a long time, so they're a solid choice.
All right.
So there's a lot of other manufacturers that already have an intake for the stock tune.
Okay. Waiting to see if SPT will come out with something again. They haven't really...
Oh, man, right.
I would love it. I would love to see it.
The problem was theirs was aluminum for the RGDs, and that was a heat-soaked monster. So Cobb,
I have it on my car.
The plastic
I prefer
is much better. A lot of people do. I like the plastic composite that Cobb had, especially if you've got that red line one with the carbon around it. That thing's beautiful.
And also Cobb makes the cold box for it and stuff like that.
Yeah, my old school, right. It's just basically a box around the filter. Nothing special, but it definitely does keep the heat
SPT does
out.
make the shroud, too, that you can use with other intakes as well.
Oh, yeah.
It's a full border shroud.
Yeah.
So I have that on mine, and I have to say that area of the bay, after driving it all the way to Wicked Big Me, which was like 3 hours from where I live, stayed cooler considerably in the summertime, in the middle of June, than the rest of the area of the engine bay. So that shroud does work, but the shroud itself will get hot, so don't touch it.
Right. And I also have an intake snorkel from Velocitech, which is supposed to reduce intake temps. Haven't went through the testing of it, but I will say my engine bay is noticeably cooler, especially in the summer. I've had it on since day one of the car.
It's like the Snorkus cold airs from the GDs and stuff like that. You remember those?
Oh, yeah,
you do the Snorkus delete, but then you run the piping straight down from there and stuff. You just got to be careful you don't suck up water.
Oh, yeah, definitely don't drive through any puddles and turn it off during a car wash. But they did some research and development on it, and they say it's safe for rain, safe for car washes. It's at an angle, so the water doesn't go directly into the intake.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more of a ram.
Exactly, a ram intake.
So there should be some inlets in between there to let the water out. But that's a great one. Now, you also have some bracing?
Yes. Now, I went with Import Image Racing's bracing. I don't know what brand it is.
Okay.
It could be Noble, but I did get it from Import Image Racing.
Okay. Nice. So future plans, you already went over with some power with the intake. Some other things.
Suspension, I don't think I'm going to end up touching. You know, I work down in Westchester. The potholes are... It's New York. You know, unless you're willing to run bags, especially for daily driving. Granted, bags don't drive as nice as coils. I personally try to avoid potholes as best as possible, but some roads are just fully potholes, so there's unavoidable... Other than not taking that road, but working down in Westchester, you'll have it where that road is closed, and you're forced to take the bad road. So,
or like up at Titusville Road, like Poughkeepsie, where one part is just one gigantic pothole and not anything else. So they might as well just rip it up and start over at that point.
Especially if you're looking at getting lips or anything like.
Oh yeah,
don't want to crack an oil pan. Don't want to.
Oh man, Fumoto valve. You got to watch out with that if you're going to be running that Fumoto valve off-road or anything, just be wary because it is something sticking off of your oil pan, and if you do hit that, you're in trouble because you're going to rip the threads of the oil pan. So yeah, use it with your application. So we went over some sponsors that you're going to be sponsored by. Anyone else that you're looking at possibly being sponsored by in the future?
Most likely Overtake USA.
Nice.
I mean,
shout out Overtake.
Shout out Overtake. A lot of history. Just looking forward to see what they have for the platform. So far, not much, but you know, you got to start somewhere. You got, you know, it's going to develop. There's going to be more parts to come. So looking forward from that from Overtake USA.
I bet you need one of those cabin air filters already, too.
Oh,
probably.
100%.
They get nasty. They get real nasty.
And those hood struts look pretty...
They're beefy.
Decent.
They're nice. Yeah. I have the JDM hood struts, and they're skinny. You could tell the Overtake ones they're stout enough. So, obviously, 845 SUBIE. How long have you been in 845 SUBIE?
So, it started when I had my bug eye, and this was back in 2019. And I just wanted to be around a community of people who share the same passion and like the platform. This way, going forward, it's a Subaru. It's bound to have its issues. To have like-minded people who can get you out or possibly point you in the right direction. And I love Subarus, and I like to see everybody's builds, go on for cruises, be a part of the meets. It's a great community that we have.
Culture,
yeah. One of the best things. You just go to a meet, and you're going to get so many ideas of what you might want to do and what you might not want to do. So this way, you get an overall sense. You can talk to these people. Everyone's very cool. You can just go up to them and start a conversation, ask them about their car. They're sure they're going to want to talk to you. Everyone's just the camaraderie there is awesome.
Not only that, if I may interject, the Subaru community is one different than many, many others. Now, besides Subarus, I've owned Mazdas. I've had one American car. Anyway, I've owned a few Volkswagens now and stuff like that, and it's just one thing that I have to say is that when the Subaru community comes together, they really they come together. It doesn't matter if you have differences in political opinion, it doesn't matter if you have differences in music and style of dress and whatnot.
We all share that same passion,
right? And then it brings people together in a way like places like Wicked Big Meat and stuff like that. But that's on a grand scale. Let's look at like just some regular in your town type of meets. We got Westage, Duncan that we all try to get together and stuff like that.
Mia.
Pizza Mia is another big one that I say big one in that people try to like make a point to go to and stuff like that. Also Duncan across from Dairy Queen and Wabash Falls right on Route 9.
James Warrior is another one.
Big event. We've done quite a few big events with them and stuff like that. We're looking to, there's going to be a grand opening of a new food joint that's over by that Duncan and Wappages that we might be being a big part of. More on that later.
That's in the works.
Definitely in the works.
Stay tuned for that.
Definitely been talk about that. One other thing that I wanted to ask is, being a part of 845 SUBIE and just the SUBIE community as a whole, what is one of your best memories?
I will say it will always come down to Wicked Big Meat. When we all are there, it generally feels like we're in a family. Every single year is a memory. I will say my favorite meet, though, outside of shows, would have to be my first one. That's when I got introduced into the community. I saw everybody's all together, and I've been a part of a couple of toxic car communities. You come over to 845 SUBIE, it's a fresh breath of air. Mm-hmm. Nobody's out there saying anything about each other's builds. We try to uplift each other, and it's just kind of rare nowadays.
Yeah, it's what we try and do. It's what we try and strive for.
And I will say my first meet was at that Dunkin'. Nice. So there is a lot of history at that Dunkin'.
Oh my gosh, mine too. So that's where I met 845 as well. Yeah, at that Dunkin' Westage, coming home from a Minitruck camping trip. And that was, I'll remember that forever.
And I feel like a lot of us share that story.
I basically attacked you with my camera.
That's wild. That's incredible.
I'm a big fan of like the Kei car scene and stuff like that. And when I say Kei car, I mean Japanese, not the Lee Iacocca stuff from the 80s. Although those are cool too. Hey, Shelby CSX, awesome car. Moving on. One thing I do have to say is that was a big thing for me. So the day that you showed up for that, I saw that and I beelined for it. And I always have my GoPro with me when I'm going to these things. I was all over that car like a crappy suit, you know what I mean? Like, I would not leave this poor man alone. And what was funny was that same day was my official interjection into 845 SUBIE community. I made the Dunkin' Meat video for them that was just a special video that I wasn't even going to put on my channel. And talking with Jay, and Jay was like, no, man, put it up on your channel, man. I want to see that channel grow. And, one hand will wash the other and this, that, and the other thing. And, like, talking with Jay was super, super cool. And that same day I met JP and all that stuff. So it was like, just,
And I will say
awesome.
Something about Jason is, from day one, he was there with open arms. When it comes to content, or creating events, or just a general, let me ask you a question and see what's up. Yeah. he's always been that open guy, and could always appreciate that.
Yeah, it was great coming in and seeing the wealth of people who were friendly enough to just come up to you, no matter who you are.
Like they know
hey, you have a Subie? Not even, well, no, I don't, but I want a Subie one day. Okay, come and see ours and see what you want.
And just to say for myself, for the 3 years I had my BMW, I was still 845SUBIE, so you definitely don't need to have a Subaru. It's encouraged.
I bring my Volkswagen all the time because that's my daily.
And it doesn't have to be a WRX either. I mean, we've definitely had some Imprezas in our group, some Outbacks, some Foresters. So, we're open.
Crosstrek.
Maybe someday I'll get my hands on a GL10 body. And be able to have an RX2 or something like that.
But yeah, we're trying to get into the overland stuff. 2025 Overland Festival is now going to be sponsored by Subaru, so hopefully in the future, I think there's one, actually Northeast, I don't think there's one coming up near us. I think Virginia is going to be the closest one. But as that gets larger...
Road trip to Virginia.
Right, yep. we're going to try and encompass and get ourselves into all those avenues of Subaru.
We are trying to do Gatlinburg this year.
Yes,
and
that's
Tennessee,
going to be big.
So it's big every year.
And I will say, our name is kind of growing as far as we got people in other states that even have our banners and know who 845SUBIE is.
Maryland,
that's
it's kind of crazy.
Connecticut,
awesome.
big time in Connecticut.
Oh yeah.
I go generally. I go every year to UC3. That's over in. Sorry, anybody that's watching, if I'm butchering this name, Rensselaerfield, I believe.
I think Rensselaer.
Rensselaer. Okay, yeah. See, I knew I was butchering it.
Yeah.
And they, anytime I've gone there. And I've had some sort of Subie stuff on, for 845SUBIE stuff like that. They know who we are. I don't even have to say anything.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Like that.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Is awesome.
Really cool that we're able to network like that and just meet so many different people. Subaru owners just all over the place, down in Florida even. I know when you were down at Subie Fest, you got to mix it up with a lot of people.
Yeah, Texas was awesome.
Texas.
Space City Subies is great in Texas.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to the Texas one. I was trying to go.
It's just so many great people you meet.
And I will say, I've conversed with so many other people as well, because I just started with doing content for my vehicle. When I had the BMW, it was all fun and stuff, but now I'm into a new platform. There's a lot of stuff that people haven't even tried yet that, you could be the first one. And just doing that stuff with my content, I've been able to reach out to a lot of different types of people. And every single time I reach out to a new person, that's a new person who knows about 845SUBIE. Because I rep them like no other person.
It's awesome.
Another thing to talk about that I wanted to ask you about is, what about possible track time?
So, my Forester, as you guys may know, is going to be emissions exempt next year. And there's a small piece of me, because I adore that car. It has gotten me out of so many difficult situations that I don't think any other car could have gotten me out of. And I have a lot of personal attachment to that car, and I'm thinking about, turning that into my own track build, because I can't let go of that vehicle. I want to make use of it.
I want to see it happen, man. I hate to push your hand, but I want to see it happen.
Especially being a first-gen Forester, I know there's a huge community on that alone. So.
Oh yeah, actually, my wife is a huge first-gen Forester fan. Huge. So.
No,
shout out Gracie 7, by the way.
No,
as far as my WRX, it's very much going to be a daily driver that can kick some
major ass.
Yeah. Love it.
That's my plans.
Cool.
Also, how long ago did you put the wing on the WRX? Because last time you were here, I saw it, but
it's great.
We didn't get a chance to talk about it.
So I put the wing on, I want to say 3 months ago. Had a little bit of difficulty, but it's pretty common. I don't want to say companies, because I do love their product. I do think that their wing fits what I'm looking for the best. I know it's not as big as the OEM STI wing, but for what I want, it fits the look.
I think it looks great.
Yeah, I think it looks
color
amazing.
matched properly and everything.
I will say color match is very on point. Fitment was great.
It is.
So I have no complaints other than that.
You bought it painted or?
Yeah, came fully paint match.
Wow,
had a little difficulty with the hardware, but it was rectified very quickly.
Oh, good. Yeah. No, as long as their support is great.
And I'll never really downplay any of the companies out there. They're all pretty much doing the same thing, and not to throw anything, but a lot of companies have turned to drop shipping, and I want to see that start coming back to the USA and manufacturing here.
That would be something.
This way, not everybody is putting out the same product with their name slapped onto it, you know?
Wheel brands, for instance, you don't have too many that are here doing it in this country now.
Oh,
I mean,
no.
you got some big name ones like
Japan.
CCW and Rotiform and stuff like that. But other than that, it's mainly like either Japan or, believe it or not, there's a lot of Korean companies out there.
They're coming up.
I mean, shout out to South Korea, the non-communist portion for those that I can't tell you, like I've said before that I'm a big fan of like the N line and stuff like that, and right away something out of somebody's mouth because they just don't do their homework about regions and stuff like that and what the divide actually is. Like, I don't know if I want to buy a communist car. I'm like, dude, we wouldn't have it in this country.
Exactly.
If communist closes.
And what I will say is there's a common question that's asked. Why did you pick the WRX when you have options like the Type R, the Corolla GR, the Elantra N, even the SI coming from Honda? But
sure,
like I said, I live in New York. For that $30,000 to $40,000 range, I don't even think there is an option that you can get where it's 6-speed all-wheel drive. I mean, you want to get into the Golf R, that's $50K plus. Corolla GR, they're doing dealer markups, and you're not getting that for under 50.
Wow.
And BMW, you want to get into BMW?
No.
Their manual offerings, unless you want to go into used, you're
paying
more than
the
60.
The M3 and the M4 and stuff like that, which are some of the few that they're making that are still manual.
Wow.
That's another thing too in the car community that I really want to take a chance to touch on is we really got to focus on saving the manuals so that we still have that option. One of the things that I've always said is I always liked the Q50, right? I can't own one unless it's manual, which means that I'd have to get the 3.7 so this way I could swap the 370Z 6-speed into it in order to own that. If they just made it that way,
you wouldn't have to go around.
You wouldn't have to do all that stuff, and then you could be somebody that could enjoy the VR engines then, because VRs you can't swap no manual transmissions to, so you're stuck with the auto. And people are like, oh, I guess I'll deal. No, if you're a manual enthusiast, you got to remain a manual enthusiast and save the manuals. Right? Sign those petitions and tell automakers, no, we still want manuals, because the reason why they're not offering as many as they have been is because you get the people that are like, all right, I really like this car, so I guess I'll just deal with not shifting gears and possibly fall asleep while driving.
Or it comes down to the guys who kind of praise Ford's 10-speed and all these new offerings coming in. They shift very fast, and it's hard to say that a 6-speed could even shift as fast as those guys. But it comes down to user experience. I always compare manual to like cooking a meal in the microwave versus preparing it like from fresh. Cooking it on the stove or what other way that you could cook it. But
that's a good analogy.
You'll live longer with fresh made meals.
No, but the way I look at it is the microwave will do it faster. Now, is it better?
Right.
It is better in the sense of it's done faster, but the experience in general isn't going to be as enjoyable as a manual.
Quality over speed.
Exactly.
And honestly, I will say that there is better quality put into manual transmissions in general, because if you get a situation where the classic 5 speeds that start to grind after a while, guess what? You're replacing some synchros, putting it back together, slapping it back in the car, and you're having fun. You got a buddy that you grab a 6-pack and you guys do it together and stuff like that, with a hoist, obviously. So to do it safe, don't be stupid like me. Just that's it. It's just mechanical components that you're changing. There's no actuators, there's no pumps, there's no belts, there's no nothing. You get an automatic transmission. I know a buddy of mine that had a GTR that blew the automatic transmission in it and spent almost the price of the car to get a new transmission for it to blow again. The second one was under warranty, luckily, but he didn't have the car for a year because of it.
Wow. That's a long time to be without your car.
And he was on a waiting list to have it repaired and this, that, and the other thing, so it sat in the shop. When he got it back, it was covered in dust, and it shifted weird. He had to bring it back, and guess what? It got to sat for another 6 months and stayed covered in dust.
Wow, and that's
the whole car season.
A whole period just to be without your car.
Manual transmission.
And not for nothing with manuals as well. I compared my gas mileage to my partner's car because she also has a VB, which is automatic. And I don't know if she has a heavier foot than me, which I doubt. But when we compared our average gas mileage, I had the better mileage. Because I'm fully in control of downshifts and everything.
And in White Plains, you got city driving that you're dealing with.
Yep, city and highway. And I still manage to, beat hers. And she does highway as well. I don't know what's the difference, why the manual does. I think it's mostly because you're in control of the RPMs and everything. You know, nothing's down to the computer. There's not even rev matching. You have to do that all yourself.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, unless you get one of the newer Mustangs, those apparently have auto rev match, which is god awful. If you can't rev match, then just practice more at it.
Yeah,
yeah, basically.
And not for nothing. What I will say, yes, I got into driving manual in 2019, but I also had a buddy who was willing to let me drive his car. He had a BMW E46 330i.
Nice.
That was the first car I ever tried to drive manual in. And not for nothing, because I've played Forza. I know it's not realistic, but I was able to see.
Forza fan.
I was able to see when
Forza.
do you have to clutch in, when do you have to downshift. You know, you learn all that going into those games, and you can take it into real life.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, the Sims getting there.
Only car game out there that has more than Forza in terms of like has more than I'll start that part over.
We could add to it.
Well, it's not live anyway. The only thing I will say is like with Forza and stuff like that. The one thing about that is that the car map or the map. Yeah, well the maps are cool too, but the car list is like 800 plus cars. The only thing that comes close to that is like Gran Turismo,
but not the new one. If you
Gran Turismo 4, that was the one that had like
4, 5, and 6. That's when Gran Turismo had the largest inventory of cars.
Right.
Like, let's say you had a 1998 Subaru Legacy. When would you ever see that being put in a video game? You could play Gran Turismo and it'll be right there.
They had the B4 RSK sedan and they had the GTB wagon. They also had the second gen GTB wagon, which is really really cool.
It's crazy.
And in the third gen, which I had a couple of third gen legacies, including the GT 5-speed and with the dual moon roofs and stuff. But what's cool is that game has the Legacy GT Blitzen. For those that don't know what the Blitzen is, so the same person that was designing Porsche in the late 90s and early 2000s, actually through the 2000s, I believe, he was the one that created the Porsche Boxster, was the person that took the Subaru Legacy, threw a limited slip differential in that, and said, let's tweak the body too. And that's the car that had that weird like M-style spoiler on the back of it, which you wouldn't see on cars again until now.
Now-ish, yeah. Now you're starting to see a lot of the old spoilers being implemented in the Cars.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to see some history being relived.
They're doing that. I saw there was a Hyundai out there that's got like that Saab ducktail spoiler on it now. I mean, the rest of the car looks kind of... But I thought the spoiler was
a throwback.
Yeah, I thought the spoiler was cool. I'd love to see somebody else with, you know, like a car with a gas engine and a manual transmission throw that spoiler on the back of one of theirs and stuff like that. Something with like a shorter trunk deck.
That will fit the body lines a lot better.
Right, much like a VB WRX or something like that has that shorter trunk line. Even the V8s have a smaller trunk line. So, I mean...
And we're seeing a lot of variations. Like, there's new spoilers coming out for the VB almost on a weekly basis where you're like, huh, I haven't seen that wing in a while.
Right.
You know, so it always comes down to, like, saving the manuals. That's what we really want to see.
Absolutely.
I don't want to see that die out. You know, I want to eventually teach my kid one day, hey,
you know, if you want like a luxury style sedan right now, like what they call an estate sedan, that's high performance and with the manual and rear wheel drive, that to my knowledge, the only things that I can think of is either the M3 or the
CT5 Blackwing
edition, yeah, which is like 660 horsepower.
Yeah, they're giving M3s the run for their money.
Oh yeah. But, you know, and then if you want to go the next step down, then you're looking at like the Elantra N or the CT4, which is I believe
also
V6.
The Mustang GT. You can't not include that in that conversation. The amount of power those Coyotes are making.
We're looking at the coupe when we're talking to that. I'm talking like sedans and stuff like that right now. That I think that you're not going to find too many other four-door rear-wheel drive style sedans. Well, the N isn't rear wheel, that's front wheel. So I mean, yeah, you got three cars that we were able to name. And then if you go into coupes, then you have a couple more options where you got like the Mustang and stuff like that. But, you know, all the big American cars, they're kind of killing them off. They're either looking to do EV stuff or they're just doing automatics or, you know, all this other kind of stuff there. So realistically, it's like, create some petitions. Start getting some people to sign them and stuff like that. Talk to the automakers. If you talk to them, they're going to want to listen. Because why? You're the consumer. You're dishing
You're telling them what you want to buy. Yeah.
Right. So why am I going to force you to buy an automatic when you really didn't want to? But you're lying to me by telling me, I guess I'll deal.
And I want to see a world where electric vehicles are here, and regular cars with an engine are here. You know, I want to see them do cool stuff, but don't force it on me. If I want to go electric, I would go electric.
Right.
But don't make it the only option.
See, I feel like electric would have had some sort of stay power in, like, maybe like taxis and stuff like that. You know, something that the vehicle's running
idling
all day long, constantly idling. New York City, you know, something like that. In some aspects, maybe in the city more or less, like police cars or something like that, because that's another thing that, you know, if they're sitting there on the side of the highway or something, they're most likely idling, especially if it's in the wintertime. Who wants to freeze their ass off? I don't blame them. I would want a cop to stay warm. You know what I mean? Only going to be crankier if they're not.
But we can't also... Yeah. I mean, the racing community is all moving towards hybrid all-electric as well, and it kind of kills me, because I used to be an F1 fan, and now all you're hearing is tire screeching. You're not hearing those loud, like
F1
9K.
sounds were something to be, like, symphonized over, honestly.
Yeah.
And now, it's just tire noise and stuff like that. And the fact of the matter is that they're putting these false regulations on these cars, and they're saying, well, you have to because it has to meet an emission standard or a noise ordinance and this, that, and the other thing. No, it doesn't. It's actually false. It's just they're putting these little extra laws in and stuff like that just because they can. So,
and I doubt these cars that are going on the track for a short amount of time are emitting enough emissions to be like, hey, we should kill the engine completely and just go fully electric. Like, I don't see the purpose.
Even still, race fuel and stuff like that is a much more cleaner burn.
100%.
So, the fact that they're saying, is zero tailpipe emissions from an EV car. That's because there is no tailpipe. You're cheating. You can't use that as a proper, like, pitch, saying zero tailpipe emissions. I want that EV car to have a tailpipe, and I want to see what the radiation emission is.
Exactly. Lithium isn't the most, friendly for the environment.
Right.
And I used to do solar work, and that is another one that is kind of controversial, but...
Well, nothing's recyclable about it.
That's my issue with it. So I'm more for becoming a better society with energy efficient stuff. Just make it make sense.
Right.
That's all I'm asking
We don't need to lose engines for it. There's ways to make cleaner burns. There's... one of my favorite things to point out is NHRA. Those are high fuel dragsters, right? High fuel. That means that they're dumping out. They're sucking, 2 miles to the gallon type of stuff. Did you ever notice that when the flames come out of the pipes of that, they burn clear?
Clear, yeah.
And there's no real smoke that comes off of it. It's just that kind of like wavy looking thing from the heat that's dissipated into the... There's no emission to it. And those things are straight out of the engine. There's no catalyst. There's no nothing. Because it's 100% octane. It's all alcohol fuel, methanol fuel, stuff like that. I mean, meth injection and stuff like that, there is some sort of omit from it, but...
You're not daily driving a meth injected car.
Right,
well,
exactly.
Some people will, but...
But even if you do, you're actually not causing as much pollution as they are telling you that you are. There's a bit of a political agenda behind it that I won't get into too much because, I mean, you dive down too far of a rabbit hole. But the fact of the matter is that the truth is, this whole thing about gasoline cars are going to become a thing of the past type of thing. It's not true. You just need the right people to say no. And, you want to have a coexistence of EV and gas cars and stuff like that.
That's the way I see it. You want a coexistence.
Fine,
you don't want to eliminate.
For me, it would be more efficient to make taxis and buses and stuff like that the EVs so that we're limiting what we're throwing into the landfills and stuff like that. And that we're not creating the gigantic craters that are in California and South Africa and stuff like that.
And you don't want these cars to turn into, like, the e-waste of, phones. They are not recycling right. That. Once it reaches a certain... That goes straight into a dump. We don't want that to be vehicles,
Nothing recyclable about them. The EV car... Once those batteries are in a landfill for X amount of years... Now, I worked with a lot of EV and hybrid cars when I worked for Volkswagen. I worked for Honda, Toyota, a bunch of other companies and stuff like that. And I saw firsthand what would happen to those batteries and those electric motors and stuff like that. They would get packaged up into a plastic crate, which is thin and flimsy. All right? It would get duct taped around the top, and it would get sent to a landfill. After time, that plastic breaks down. The plastic casing that holds the batteries and stuff like that breaks down. Where is this placed in? This is placed in a landfill. What is that around it? Soil. What's going to happen? All that negatively charged ion water and stuff like that is going to go into the soil, which therefore will eventually bleed out into water supplies, people's houses and lawns and stuff like that. You don't realize how widespread that stuff will just continuously travel.
And that stuff is corrosive as well. It's not like it's, an an oil base or something like that.
So
no,
really
that stuff is really corrosive.
Nothing green about it. And then people that, they're plugging their cars in overnight and stuff like that, and they're running the power company even more. Guess what? The power company isn't running on,
nuclear or something that is going to be not fossil fuel. It comes down to EVs are not eliminating fossil fuel. We're always going to have a need for fossil fuel. I know we have certain houses that are also energy efficient that probably use heat coils instead of the classic oil, but something's got to power that heat coil. Energy isn't free,
right.
Maybe we'll get to a point one day like that, but from where it is right now, I think just let us coexist. That's all I'm asking for. Don't eliminate all these car models.
So with that, I think this is a good way to segue into it. So this is the first half of 845SUBIE's podcast, episode 2. Tarik, I want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime, man. So we're going to talk some more VB stuff in just a few more moments. Stay tuned.